Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we're taking a plunge into a single source, an inspiring address that gives a really powerful, maybe even, slightly uncomfortable view on achieving goals and unlocking your potential.
That's right. And the source, it really zeroes in on a quality that, well, it isn't often celebrated. It's not glamorous.
Not at all.
But it's absolutely essential: consistency.
Right. And our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack what the source says about consistency. We want to explore why it argues, pretty forcefully actually, that consistency matters more than motivation.
And how it's built, day by day.
Yeah, how it's built the obstacles it helps you push through, because there will be obstacles.
Yeah, definitely.
And its fundamental role in that whole journey towards, well, whatever success means to you personally.
So get ready to dig into some, let's say, fundamental truths about showing up.
Just showing up.
The surprising power of taking those small, often kind of invisible steps. And importantly, how to face the challenges that are, let's be honest, absolutely going to pop up along the way.
Okay, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
So, let's start right where the source itself kicks off. With a pretty direct question, actually. How often do you quit when things get difficult?
Oof. Yeah, that's a challenging one. And it takes us straight to the core argument here. This source, it basically posits that success isn't really about, innate talent or just getting lucky.
Yeah, not the big breaks.
No.
Yeah.
The real differentiator, it argues, is consistency. Just that ability to keep showing up again and again.
And this is where it draws that really sharp contrast, isn't it, between consistency and motivation.
Exactly.
Motivation, the source says, it's like a spark. It's exciting, gets you going.
Right. Get you off the couch.
But it's temporary, right? It totally depends on your mood or what's happening around you.
Precisely. Think of it like that adrenaline rush. Great for starting, but it fades. It always fades. Consistency, though, is presented quite differently, like a steady internal engine.
A slow burn.
Yeah, a steady burn. It's relentless because it's not tied to how you feel right now.
And relying only on motivation, the source basically calls that a trap because you end up waiting for the perfect moment.
When you feel totally energized, everything's lined up.
Which, let's face it, probably never comes.
It's just delaying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Waiting is just another word for delaying. The source says pretty powerfully that consistency means you show up anyway.
Anyway.
Even when you're tired, stressed, feeling zero motivation, you stop waiting to feel like it.
Right.
And you just rely on the commitment to do it.
Which I think leads directly to the foundation the source identifies. That simple, almost deceptively simple act of just showing up.
Yeah.
It says showing up is half the battle.
And maybe the harder half sometimes. Especially showing up when you really don't feel like it. That's the critical point, isn't it? Those moments. They're the ones that really matter. The ones that build the muscle, so to speak. When it's hard, inconvenient, you're wiped out.
Those are the moments, according to this, that separate, average effort from something more.
Exceptional effort, yeah. It's easy when you're riding that motivation wave.
Totally.
The real test, the discipline, comes when you have to kind of force yourself to start.
And that forcing, that's where discipline comes in.
Exactly. The source describes discipline as that sort of quiet muscle powering consistency. It's just doing what needs to be done, day in, day out.
Even when no one's watching.
Especially when no one's watching. No audience, no immediate reward, no one cheering you on.
Definitely not glamorous work.
Not at all. But like any muscle, the source says, the more you use it, the more you practice showing up when it's tough.
The stronger it gets.
Yeah. It gets stronger. It stops feeling like this huge effort and becomes more ingrained, almost non-negotiable.
Okay, so building on that, showing up, discipline. How does this actually translate into progress? Because the source really pushes back against this common idea, right? That success needs these huge, grand gestures.
Oh, absolutely. Monumental leaps, as it calls them.
Yeah, and we're often looking for that, aren't we? The big break, the one event that changes everything.
We are. But this material argues pretty convincingly, I think, that success isn't built in those rare moments. It's built in the small daily actions, the ones that, if you look at them individually, they seem totally
insignificant.
Inconsequential, yeah.
Exactly.
It uses that analogy, the mountain climbing one.
Right. You don't get to the summit in one jump. You do it, as the source says, by placing one foot in front of the other.
One step at a time.
Every single step, no matter how small, how slow it feels,
Yeah.
it moves you closer.
And these small steps, when you do them consistently, that's what builds momentum.
Yes. That snowball analogy it uses.
That's rolling downhill.
Starts tiny, right? Easy to stop. But as it keeps going, keeps collecting snow.
Gets bigger, faster, becomes this unstoppable force. And that momentum, that helps carry you, especially on the days the steps feel really heavy.
But, and this is a big but in the source, it warns this is definitely a long game.
Oh, yeah. Not a quick fix.
It compares it to planting seeds.
Mm-hmm. You plant them, and nothing.
And
For a while, anyway, on the surface.
Right. It looks like nothing's happening.
Right.
But underneath.
Critical stuff is going on, roots growing deep, building that foundation.
And this, the source says, is exactly where a lot of people give up.
Tragically, yeah. They put in the effort, plant the seeds, but they don't see results right away.
Impatience kicks in.
Totally. They decide it's not working, and they quit. They want the quick harvest, the instant gratification.
Instead of that sustained, patient effort.
And they often stop, like right before the breakthrough would have happened, just before the shoots appear.
Okay, so you commit to the steps, you're playing the long game.
Yeah.
But then resistance shows up.
Inevitably.
Yeah.
And the source has a name for this. The wall.
Ah, the wall. And it's not just like physical tiredness.
No. It's described as the physical manifestation of your internal stuff, your doubts, your fears.
Your excuses.
All those excuses, yeah. It's that point where pushing forward feels incredibly hard. Resistance becomes almost tangible.
And the source talks about how those doubts stack up, like bricks in the wall.
Mm-hmm. What if I fail? Am I really good enough for this? What's the point anyway?
Yeah, those questions build the structure, make it seem solid, impenetrable.
And fear.
Yeah.
Fear's insidious, it says. Doesn't always show up as sheer terror.
Sometimes it's just caution.
Right. Or being realistic. Telling you to play it safe, don't risk looking silly. Its job, fundamentally, is to keep you right where you are, safe in the comfort zone.
Which is the enemy of growth, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you pile on the excuses.
Too tired today?
No time right now.
I'll start fresh tomorrow. We've all been there.
Oh, definitely. The source calls them easy, convenient, comfortable lies. And each one is just another brick, making that wall taller, thicker, more daunting.
But here's a really powerful idea from the source about that wall. As real as it feels, it's often an illusion.
Explain that.
Well, it's a barrier built mostly in your own mind.
Right.
Constructed from your insecurities, your limiting beliefs.
So those doubts,
Yeah,
they aren't necessarily facts.
exactly. They're projections. Projections of fear.
Okay, so you're facing this wall built of internal resistance. How do you get through it, or over it, or around it?
The source gives a clear answer. Consistency.
Consistency.
That's the hammer, it says, that breaks down the wall.
Not one big swing, though.
No, that's the key. It's not one heroic hit. It's day after day, hit after day hit.
Relentless.
It's that relentless, sometimes exhausting willingness to just keep swinging, even when the wall seems totally solid.
That's where resilience comes from, isn't it? Grit.
Definitely. But the source adds something crucial here. Just swinging isn't quite enough.
Okay.
Breaking through requires belief. You absolutely have to believe the wall can be broken.
The mental game.
Your mind is so powerful. What you genuinely believe, that shapes your reality. It determines the force behind your swing.
If you think it's impossible.
Then it will be. Your commitment, your desire, that hunger for whatever's on the other side.
That has to be louder.
Louder than the internal voice of doubt and fear telling you to stop. You have to actively drown out the noise.
Drown it out with effort.
Yeah. And every single time you push through discomfort, through pain, doubt, that urge to quit,
You're chipping away.
you're chipping away at the wall, making progress, even if you can't see the cracks yet.
And, just as importantly, you get stronger.
Exactly. The wall weakens, sure, but you strengthen with every single push.
So the wall isn't just an obstacle. It's framed as a test.
Right. A test to see how bad you really want it.
It filters people out, maybe.
Yeah.
Those not willing to keep showing up when it gets tough.
That seems to be the idea. Okay, so moving past the wall. The source then makes this really important shift in focus. Reminds us of something many of us forget. How we're often trained, from school onwards, to chase only the outcome.
The grade, the promotion, the win.
Yeah, the final destination. And the source argues that by focusing only on that end result, you miss the most important part.
The most transformative part.
Which is
The process.
the process itself.
That's where everything actually happens, isn't it? Real growth, the lessons learned.
Character building, resilience.
It's the daily grind. The struggles, the frustrations, the small wins along the way, all that unseen effort between the start and the finish.
The outcome, the destination, the source calls it fleeting.
Like a brief moment, you get the degree, you hit the goal.
Then it's done. But the process, that's what actually changes you.
Transforms you from the person who wanted it into the person who could achieve it and sustain it.
So the call to action here is pretty radical, really. It's to fall in love with the process.
Find meaning in the daily effort itself, trusting that if you just keep showing up, keep putting in the work.
Embracing the journey, ups and downs.
The outcome becomes almost a natural byproduct. Eventually.
And focusing on the process lets you stop waiting for the finish line to feel good about yourself.
Exactly. You find satisfaction in developing the habits, seeing your skills grow, feeling your determination deepen day by day.
Okay. But how do you maintain that focus on the process, that commitment, especially when the outcome feels miles away?
Good question. This brings us to another key, and maybe equally unglamorous, word the source highlights.
Let me guess. Accountability.
You got it. Accountability. Without it, the source basically says dreams just stay dreams. Nice ideas, but they don't happen.
It's about holding yourself to your own standards.
Especially, say it with me.
When no one is watching.
Exactly. It means facing the truth about your actions, or your lack of action.
Taking responsibility.
Owning it completely. When you skip the work, make an excuse. Accountability is saying, yep, I did that.
That kind of honesty is tough.
It is, but vital for progress.
So, how do you build that accountability muscle? Does the source offer practical steps?
It does. First, it says, set non-negotiable standards for yourself.
Minimums.
Yeah, the baseline commitments you make no matter how you feel. Lines you just won't cross.
Okay, what else?
Second, write down your goals, your standards. Make them visible.
Put them on the fridge.
Wherever you'll see them. The source calls this a concrete commitment. You need constant reminders of your why. Why did you start this?
Keep that initial spark alive somehow.
Right. Third, and this is interesting, surround yourself with people who will push you.
An accountability buddy.
Or a group. People who get your goals, who won't just accept your excuses, who call you out maybe, gently, or maybe not so gently. Remind you of the standard you set, mutual accountability, knowing someone else knows your commitment. That adds drive.
That makes sense.
Anything else. And finally, practice. Brutal self-honesty. Regularly check in. Where did I fall short? Why? What's the plan to do better next time?
So it's not about perfection.
Not at all. It's about consistent, truthful self-assessment and getting back on track immediately when you slip.
And the source suggests that doing this consistently, holding yourself accountable, it changes something inside you.
Yeah. You start to trust yourself more. You see yourself following through on your own promises.
Build self-belief, self-respect, valuing your word to yourself.
Exactly. Now, as we talk about the journey, the process, there's one more big thing we have to tackle. Something that stops so many people even before they start.
Let me guess again. Failure.
The fear of failure, yes.
It's huge for a lot of people.
It is. But the source offers this, like, radical counterargument. Failure is not the enemy.
Not the opposite of success?
No. It says it's an intrinsic, necessary part of the journey, a lesson, a course correction, a stepping stone.
Wow. So how does it define actual failure then?
It's very clear.
Yeah.
You only truly fail, like permanently, if you quit.
Everything else is just feedback.
Feedback, a stumble, a setback, an outcome you didn't want. But it's not final. The real test is what you do next.
Right. Do you let it crush you and make you quit?
Or do you use it? Use it as fuel. Failure, viewed this way, forces you to see your weaknesses.
Identify flaws in your plan.
Learn stuff you couldn't have learned otherwise. Invaluable lessons.
And consistency. The source argues it's maybe most important right after a failure.
Absolutely. Anyone can keep going when things are smooth.
Smooth sailing.
Yeah. But it takes real grit, real discipline to show up again after you've stumbled, after you've fallen short.
That's where the deep growth happens.
Precisely. Failure isn't a roadblock meant to stop you. It's framed more like a detour.
Or maybe even a setup for something greater.
Yeah. The people who achieve big things, they aren't the ones who never fail. That's a myth.
They're the ones who fail, learn, adjust.
And keep going with renewed determination, maybe a smarter approach.
So every failure is just data, an opportunity to get better.
Data, not a death sentence. An opportunity to refine, to grow stronger for the next try.
Okay, let's try and bring all these pieces together then. We've got consistency.
Powered by discipline.
built through those small steps that create momentum,
Sustained by focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
reinforced by accountability.
And tempered by embracing failure as an ally, a teacher.
The source wraps this up really nicely, calling consistency. What was it?
The bridge between your dreams and reality.
That's it. The bridge.
It's not magic, not luck, not just talent.
It requires that quiet discipline, that grit.
And that unwavering belief. Belief the wall can be broken. Belief the process is worth it.
Belief that failure is just a detour.
And the final charge from this source? It's potent. Unambiguous.
What is it?
Force yourself to be consistent.
Force yourself.
Make showing up non-negotiable. Regardless of feelings, regardless of obstacles. Just show up. Do the work.
Wow. Okay, so we've taken a pretty deep dive into this idea, the power of consistency, dissecting why this source presents it as really the bedrock of achievement.
Yeah, we've seen it's way less about waiting for those, fleeting bursts of motivation and much, much more about that steady, relentless, often completely unseen daily effort. Just showing up.
We've explored how those small, consistent steps add up, create unstoppable momentum.
How consistency is like that hammer, persistently breaking down the walls of doubt and fear.
How focusing on the process is where the real transformation happens, maybe more than fixating on the outcome.
How accountability keeps you honest, keeps you aligned with your own standards.
And how reframing failure, seeing it as a setup for growth, how that changes everything.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now?
Yeah, what's the takeaway? Well, consider this thought, kind of pulling everything together. If success really is built not on those huge leaps we sometimes dream about, but on tiny, consistent, daily actions, what is just one single small step, no matter how insignificant it feels right now, that you can commit to taking consistently, starting today?
Just one small thing.
Just one step. Think about that.